address the board?
I would just like, as a pre-medicine, I have studied extensively in AIDS, and you should be terrified, Ms. Dyer. You should.
We already know that.
Fine. Think about that. I'm posing questions for you.
This is scary.
The other thing, no, it shouldn't be scary. Point of order. I would just like the chair to think of that point of the AIDS and what it can do, and your little children dying at 5 and 6. Okay? What I finally would like to say is the 140 extra jobs that will be created, not correction officers, will they be minimum, or will they be the $9 an hour, or whatever it was at Harris? Can anybody answer that? Those 140 non-correctional officers jobs. How much is that an hour, please? Okay, so that doesn't compare with Harris then, correct? Correct, it's not compare with Harris. Thank you.
Mr. Lozano, I have a book on AIDS here. It's 100 questions and answers. Would the board like to have this and try to look over it?
Appreciate it, yes. Anyone else?
Andy Goodman, Ross's Point. We're going to talk about AIDS. Me, the board asked Dr. Southwick to say yes or no to this. I'm sure he knows. The two biggest contributors to AIDS is sex in the semen and drugs used intravenously. I'm a correctional officer, and a lot of them here are. I'm not a homosexual. I don't use drugs intravenously.
Good for you,
How am I going to get in prison? I'd like to know, if I touch an inmate, Dr. Southwick, am I going to get AIDS? I touch him every day. Could you ask that to Dr. Southwick, please?
Dr. Southwick, would you care to respond?
AIDS cannot be gotten by casual contact. As Danny said, you can get it by blood and semen. In order for anyone to get AIDS, they have to come in contact with that individual's body fluids. Now, the point is brought up that maybe the virus can live outside these body fluids for a period of time. But the examples given as to why it cannot be transmitted casually are simply, unfortunately, examples of the 4 children, hemophiliacs, who received blood transfusions from 1980 to 1982. They got AIDS. Now, they live in their home environments. Their siblings, their sisters and brothers, their mother, fathers do not get AIDS. Medical personnel dealing daily with AIDS patients. There are only 8 known cases, and in all 8 cases, there was excessive spillage involved on open areas. So we don't know a lot about AIDS, but we do know at this point that it appears to be only transmitted through the body fluids of blood and semen. That answer?
Thank you, Doctor.
First of all, I'd like to say, as far as economic development, the examples that you have given us or quoted on your letters are not within our area or a vicinity that we can relate to. But we can relate to Altona, Lion Mountain, and Dannemora. They are close enough. They have not expanded industrially or financially. From Mr. Dutton's own words, Malone has shown no measurable increases in the same area industrially and financially. Now, some people have come up with job security. There isn't any more job security in a federal, a state, or a local government job than there is in private sector. There is a rift in effect right now at Plattsburgh Air Force Base that affects people with up to 25 years of seniority. So there is no security any more than in the private sector. Now, the poll that was brought up by Mr. Favreau said how many wanted the prison. Did his poll say how many did not want the prison? That is one question I have for you. I have, are they finished? I have some more questions, but these are for Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore, is it not a fact, we are hearing that the prisoners that are in these medium securities have just a small amount of time to be served? Is it not a fact that there are some in these prisons that will not get out, and I'm talking about medium security, until after the year 2000? Is it not a fact that visitors who come to Altona, and these are not on the bus, these are in their own private cars, are referred to the Chalet Motel in Champlain for overnight stays? If AIDS is not a concern of any of the guards, why is Council 82 asking the state to test all the inmates for AIDS? And lastly, Mr. Moore, we are talking about all these guards bringing economy into the towns where they work. You work in Altona. How much of your salary stayed in Altona? And since I have only 3 minutes, you don't have to answer any of them. That's Mark Berry's mother? Right.
But she's a clarification. I thought I read in the paper where the Champlain Board went on record as they could not furnish sewer services to a facility, and there was only a slight possibility of serving water. Is that correct?
They sent us a resolution supporting the prison with a reservation that they could furnish us the water, but they would have to have secondary treatment. And the Department of Corrections is aware of this. So, again, as Mr. Dave Glenn indicated, the 3 institutions that he worked with, the State of Corrections, did work with the communities and help them to put in these heated facilities.
Of course, again, in my own opinion, I don't think the village of Champlain can furnish this is just my opinion, sewer or water services without a tremendous expenditure. And of course, the state will help. But again, in my experience, they never pay the full shot or any near their share.
Well, again, I can't comment on that. All I can tell you is what the engineers told us that they've done in other areas. They have been very helpful with these other communities. And obviously, you know that the village of Champlain must, by, I believe, 1990, put in secondary treatment at the total expense of the taxpayers of the village of Champlain. So, again, this could be very helpful to them if the system, in fact, was used by the facility if it was built. Yes.
Charles Lang again. On the question of visitors coming up, yes, they're going to come up, drive up on their own vehicle from Albany, New York City, and other places of the state, Rochester, all over the state. They're going to stay overnight. They're going to stay overnight at a hotel here. They're going to have dinner here, the restaurant. They're going to buy gas here. They're going to spend some money here too.
That's all I have.
Joe Turner from Champlain. Leo, I just want to let you know that we took a poll and we did ask on it with the poll of the survey. If you were in favor of the prison, would you please sign it? We had 30 refusals out of 1,100 people. Well, I shouldn't say refusals, 15 wouldn't sign because they didn't know about the issue, and 15 flat out said no, they didn't want a prison. Some of them are here tonight. I'd like you to clarify something with me on this AIDS issue is how do you get, what's Mr. Kern mean by gradual and repetitious contact with AIDS? What's he going to be doing after this prison is built here? I mean, we know it's a retrovirus, but I mean, gradual and accumulated contact with it, to me there's only 2 ways that You could have that, either you're a drug addict or you've got other problems that we won't discuss here tonight. But I just wanted to clarify that on the whole, how they,
Dr. Southwick, do you follow that?
A couple of other things about AIDS that concern me. As I told you in my initial comments, I wasn't as concerned about the prisoners themselves. They are identified at times, not always, because prisoners have the rights that we do. They can refuse to be tested. It was the visitors that I was concerned about. And maybe this is prejudicial, but if you read the statistics like I have, that say that 30% to 40% of prisoners are intravenous drug users, their friends coming to visit may very likely be the same, of the same type. And if they stay overnight and they visit somebody downtown, and let me tell you, there are two groups of people that now have become the greatest transmitters of AIDS. It's not the homosexuals, it's the intravenous drug abusers and the prostitutes that are transmitting that. And all it takes is for one visitor to leave his calling card in town. The question about this continual exposure has not been answered. So you have to say at this point, we don't know, but we do know that it's transmitted by blood and semen. But as far as other methods, we don't know.
Bob Rassick over Roberts Point, and I'm a correctional employee, and there's several other correctional employees in the area here. Now, we have constant contact with the inmates, and according to Dr. Southwick, there are a lot of people in the institution with AIDS. So we probably have more contact with these inmates than their friends or their families or relatives, because they're in there for 4 or 5 or 3 years, and it's a continued turnover, right? Now, Dr. Southwick does administer medical care to each and every one of us as employees. So, in other words, does he feel that he is under a bad situation to take care of an employee? Would you answer that, Dr. Southwick?
Yeah, I've answered that, I think. I don't believe that that's the case. The problem isn't the known case. The problem is the unknown case.
Well, we could be
If I look at any one of your arms and see some track marks, or get the idea that you're a little different,
You did state that you were concerned about just people, their friends in general, the visitors. Irregardless of whether they have track marks or not.
that's the unknown.
That's right. So the unknown is every employee in the correctional facility is also an unknown. We're
It's
not
possible, but as far as I'm concerned, knowing both of you for a long period of time, I'm taking that risk. It's the unknown that bothers me.
Well, why would the unknown bother you so much with the correctional facility any more than it would bother you administered to any one of us as an employee?
Because of what I said, I know most of you, and I've known most of you for a good number of years.
And we work in the correctional facility for a good number of years.
That's true.
We could be carrying that type of...
Could be carrying it if you come in contact with the prisoner's semen or blood. All right? And let me tell you something. If you want to carry this a little bit further, is that every single inmate that comes to the hospital in Plattsburgh is treated as a potential AIDS victim. They are treated with rubber gloves, and they are treated as potentially AIDS carriers. We know that there are 40 cases in Dannemora and about 10 in Alabama, and there may be many others.
Well, that's the fear of the unknown, and I can understand
to close the marinas down there and close our beaches and shut off the tourism to the area. 47 miles to our north is one of the largest cosmopolitan, metropolitan areas on the East Coast with a major problem with AIDS. So we're sitting here discussing 60% of these people in here, correction officers and their families, and everybody that lives in the area knows a correction officer, knows the family, they're on the board, they're retired, they're active, and nowhere have we had a problem with that. Now they get right down to the nitty-gritty of using this as a scare tactic. I take exception to that.
Good point.
Bob Rassico again. Leo, I'd like to also mention that the average visit in Altona and most medium correctional facilities, there's usually not over 3 or 4 visits per week. And when the big visits come, they do come in a bus of 60 to 80 inmates, visitors to visit the inmates. And when these people do come up, most of them drive way up from New York City or in other areas. It's quite a long drive. So when they come up, they make their visit and they leave. While they're in the institution having their visit, by the way, they cannot go out and get to eat. They must cater the food in. And when they cater the food in, they not only can cater the food in for themselves, but they can call to have food in for the inmates. So if a bus comes in with 80 people in there, you're talking a potential of 160 meals. So I'd like people to know that these people will not go out on the street. They will not be going out to eat in their local restaurants and whatnot. They will be calling for the food in from the institution.
Leo, you have a letter. You have a letter in here which includes an indication from Newman Engineers that the state is likely to contribute toward the cost of the secondary sewage treatment plant, which village officials and their engineers have estimated a cost at approximately $4 million. Do you have you had any conversations, or do you have any written evidence at all to indicate that the State Corrections Department is willing to pay for a portion of any portion of the sewage treatment facility? I'm not talking about extending lines, which is what they did in Malone. I'm asking about the $4 million facility itself. Do you have any evidence at all to prove that corrections would even entertain such a possibility? And part 2, if I may, because I only have 3 minutes, sorry to rush you. Part 2 is, can you point to any prison facility in the state of New York which, when they came in, required a secondary sewage treatment facility, and also in which the State Corrections Department actually paid for it?
Number one, the Correction Department has written to Morel Roman Engineers, okay, to find out exactly the status of their secondary, or their primary treatment plant. Now, whether I have that's all I know. I have a letter that indicates that. And my only knowledge that I have is the same that you have, unless you have something else, is when Dave Glenn indicated to us at the last information meeting that they did assist 3 other communities with their water and sewer problems.
Well, my concern is that while we know that Malone received assistance in extending their sewer and water lines, we also know that in Dannemora, the state hasn't been the greatest in terms of paying their sewage and water bills. And it seems to me that if the village of Champlain is mandated by, I think you said 1993 or something like that, to build a secondary sewage treatment plant, that is bad enough. But to impose that $4 million burden in less than 2 years, according to Mr. Moore's construction schedule, I think would be a terrible burden on the taxpayers of the village of Champlain. And I would hope that before the town board goes to the state and says, we want a prison, that you put a contingency in there that says, only if you pay for the major portion of the secondary sewage treatment plant, that it comes with it.
I think that that's indicated in the resolution to the board. That's the reservation. If the state of New York will put the bill, then they can join the system.
Can I follow up?
Yeah.
Will the town board tonight agree that if the state does not pay for that secondary sewage treatment plant, that they will drop their effort to get a prison?
No, absolutely not.
I didn't think so.
No, Mark, for the simple reason that they can put in their own sewer system and their own water system. They've done it. So,
So if they can do that, why are we hearing that this is good for the village of Champlain because Champlain will get a free secondary sewage treatment plant?
primary concern of the correction department, if they can use that facility, they want to use it. It's going to save them money. And I assume that it would be cheaper for them to assist the village of Champlain, if in fact they hook into that system, than it would be to build it and maintain their
But
own.
if the state concludes that they cannot put in their own sewage treatment facilities, whether it's septic tanks and whatever, if they conclude that they must tie into the village system,
They can't tie in the village system. They know that right now. They cannot tie into the village system at the present time.
they know they cannot tie in without seeing another plant built. And let's say they also come to the conclusion that they don't want to put in their own system. Okay, under those circumstances, will the town board ensure that they will pay for most, if not all, of that secondary sewage treatment plant, if that's what they require?
I would say so, yeah.
The town board is ready to commit to that?
I would think that they certainly would. Again, this would be up to the task force and the advisory committee. And this is what they do. This is exactly their job.
Leo, with all due respect, on 3 occasions you said that the purpose of the task force is not to decide if there's going to be a prison, but where. And it makes it kind of difficult for some of us who still aren't sure that that decision
So
should be made.
say it's in the town of Champlain and it's going to be connected with the village system. The correction department now knows that they have to have secondary treatment, otherwise they cannot offer that service. DEC has already told the village of Champlain, you cannot accept sewage from such a facility at the present time because you do not have the capacity to handle it. Now, all I can tell you is what you were told, you heard here from Dave Glenn, and I assume he knows what he's talking about. Works with this engineering firm. He did work with 3 prison sites, and he did say, if I'm not mistaken, that they did assist these 3 communities in putting their sewer and water to the capacity they could use.
I think they assisted in extending the lines, Leo, not in building what we would call a treatment plant.
If you're using a play of words, one of the things is, you know as well as I do, that no matter what we vote on here tonight, it only the first step for them to understand that we are in favor of them reviewing the site there. The next step that takes place is the committee that he's talked about. You want to talk about the task force, the advisory committee, or what? But they are not going to shut down the village of Champlain, a system without some assistance. I think you're smart enough to know that.
Well, what I'm calling for is some consistency, because members of the town board have criticized the LDC for taking the chance, setting up a policy of tax breaks, okay, and spending taxpayers' money. Some of the town board, okay? I've criticized the LDC for offering tax breaks, and what bothers me, what concerns me, is the town board doesn't seem at all concerned about the risk they're taking insofar as the sewage treatment plant is concerned. It seems to be that before you bring the prison in, you ought to get that nailed down.
I don't think that in that particular position, Mark, that at that stage, that's the next stage that you're arguing about. The stage that comes next is the State Department of Corrections putting up this advisory or task force and reviews and finds out what they can do. Nowhere has the state said to the town board they are coming into Champlain. Nowhere yet. I haven't seen any paper that Mr. Ricardo, the supervisor, showed me that they are definitely coming in here. What they have been looking for is what we have here tonight. Is the feedback, the form, which we have tried to supply them. Also, to get all the information that comes from both pro and con. The state has been aware of every newspaper article that has come out, pro or con, concerning this whole issue. They ask that. It's for their input. But to get back to your question about the sewage plant, I don't think the board can go on record and say that they are going to make the conditions, because the next stage is the relationship between the village of Champlain and that advisory group working with the state of corrections. can we say that you're going to do this or else? I don't think we have that prerogative.
I think you're right. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think people from Champlain who are present here tonight should understand or be thinking about the fact that if this were to happen and we did furnish water and sewer to this facility, I think the rates in Champlain would be prohibitive. Maybe it would be better to move it down on the ash line property or the laundry property and have their Point furnished with water and sewer.
Okay. What he's saying is anyone here from the village of Champlain should say something about the probable cost to them. It's still my understanding that if the State Department of Correctional Services does use that facility, that they will, in fact, practically build the whole thing, and you won't be paying that heavy monthly sewer tax that you're referring to. I may be wrong, but as far as I know, and that's the impression that I got from Mr. Glenn, who happens to be, also happens to be the engineer for the town of Champlain.
Why did they pay Dan Award?
What's that, sir?
Why? My wife works in the village office Dan Award. It's never been paid. How can you stand there and say that? We're speaking from first-hand experience.
I'm sure that you know, the task force, whoever they may be, are going to get this type of a clarification before they even get any, before they get to an advisory board. I think that all of these things will be ironed out by the task force with the Department of Corrections. You know, if they come into the area.
I can understand, yeah.
Because the thing is just, say for example, the site was fixed in Ross's Point, on Route 9. They would hook up into Champlain, they would hook up to the sewer system in Ross's Point. And again, I don't know what the village board would say there. Yes, we can, or no, we can't have them over here. You know, that's the unknown. Yes.
Stacy Pickler, Champlain. I'd like to say the opposition did a good job for their crayons. They were busy most of the day, I think. To the board, I think you're doing real good listening to these questions that have been hashed over for 3 meetings now. Mark Berry, why pretend you're worried about the sewage? If they packaged it and didn't do nothing with it, you'd still be against it. You're against it no matter what. Why try to find some little thing? You know, they can pick up one thing, you answer their question, they're going to go with something else. Like if the sewage thing is, they'd be for it. They're not going to be for it no matter what. We hashed it through for 3 meetings. I think we could hash it all night. I say let's vote for it.
Mr. General, Danny Phillips. Hasn't it already been, I'm not a village resident of Champlain, so pardon me if I step on somebody's toes. Hasn't it already been proven that the village water system in Champlain has to be upgraded by a certain date?
I don't know about the water, I know the sewage.
Right, the sewage, okay, water or sewage.
I know the sewage has to be right, I don't think that, I don't know about the water.
If it is built, as of right now, doesn't the village of Champlain have to put every cent of it? Didn't they miss their grant that they could have had?
No, what happened, there was we're going back a few years now, the town had to be the leading agency in a feasibility study for a sewer and water system throughout the town of Champlain. That included the 2 villages, the town, and the 2 hamlets. Okay? Then they started breaking this down on cost and priorities. And they said that the village of Ross's Point was dumping their effluent in Lake Champlain, which they couldn't do. But the village of Champlain effluent was going into the Great Chazy River and not directly into Lake Champlain. So consequently, they were classified, I don't know, a 12 or a 14 or something, and the village of Ross's Point had I think a 1 or 2 classification. That's why they got the grant to build their system. And that's the way it happened.
At the last meeting, I'm sure it was brought up that the village right now has no money, even if they have to pay a little bit of it, to put toward a water and sewage treatment center. To me, it would seem whatever the state would give them would be more than they have right now.
All right, okay, I think that...
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Kathleen Ryan, and I live in Champlain.
Stand up.
Time limit.
Did you get, Albert, can you get your horn out?
He's going down, that's his side.
My name is Kathleen Ryan, and I'm a Champlain resident. And I've sat here for the last 3 hours and listened to everyone's opinion, which is what we're all entitled to. And you are elected officials. You have the decision to whether go with this or not go with this. If you believe that you have heard the majority of the town of Champlain, please bring this to a vote. We're being redundant. We're going on and on and on again. It's a matter of opinion, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And there is no right or wrong. And I ask that this come to a close because we're done.
Motion.
Moving about Champlain.
There's a motion on the floor.
This is kind of more in Mark Berry's field. I haven't been up on power tax much, but everybody else has been talking about tax breaks and DOC not paying taxes for their facility. I'm not sure, I could be wrong about this, but the power tax corporations, the companies that come in, do they pay taxes?
Yes, they do. To begin with, you know, I think we're getting away here from what we're here for. And we'll have a special board meeting, and if you have any comments regarding the LDC or its operation, I'm sure that in that meeting, Mr. Berry will be very happy to answer any questions.
We have to answer now. I'm really kind of coming to a point. It's like people are saying that the DOC isn't going to pay taxes. And if something was said about tax breaks and stuff, these companies are coming in. If they don't have to pay taxes, or if they're getting tax breaks, and they're getting jobs at $4 an hour, I'm sure there's not 400 jobs being created there. Where the state would come in and they create 400 jobs at definitely more than a base pay of $4 an hour. I think the difference between the two would definitely weigh in the state's favor. I just wanted to make that point.
All right, we've had a lot of discussion here. We have to stop sometime. I don't want to stop anyone from having their say. Now, if there's more people to speak, we'll listen to you. Otherwise, I will ask that this informational meeting be closed.
I so move.
Well, just a minute, we have a gentleman who wants to say something.
I agree with you. I think we need to come to a vote on this. And it would seem that there is a good number of people for the prison, and Lord knows we need the jobs in this community. On the other hand, there seems to be some opposition to. I think there are a number of people who might be intimidated in this sort of setting, who may be afraid to speak out against something they don't want. Those that are willing to speak out in a positive manner are doing so, and that process needs to be encouraged. I think the best way to encourage a true and honest vote on this issue is to bring it to a public vote. Would the board consider that? Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead. There is no way that we can legally have a public referendum. This certainly was the first thing that we wanted to do, and our attorney informed us, no, you cannot bring this to a public vote. That's why it didn't go to a public vote. This is why we tried to inform you as best as we knew how, both at an informational meeting, by the press, by TV, by the news media. And this is where we're at. And if there are no further questions, I will close this meeting and ask, can I have a show of hands who are in favor? Show of hands who are in favor. All right, can I have a show of hands who are opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Please, we will have a special board meeting right now, right here. You can stay or you can leave. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner House be recording, please.
What's that, ma'am?
Commissioner House be recording.
Permission from the Department of, or I'm given permission to write the Department of Correction to seek a facility in the town of Champlain.